Well, Jake Berry, this is Greg Silver, by the way. We're on the show, and we had a weekend in which there were some great occurrences, man. We got a ton of things to talk about this week. We had a couple of Valley teams score wins over San Antonio, Paya. Yeah. We got sudden death ending, not quite sudden death overtime, but a last-second ending over in the Black Hole. We got St. Joe coming up with a great defensive effort. They didn't score half the points, but they didn't give up at 7. And we had the beginning, or we will have on the show here, the beginning of one of the 5A districts already. That 9-team district in 31 is getting started. So all kinds of things happen. The other thing that we're going to start off with here in a minute, Harlingen Cardinals up against it in the first weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we thought last week's game was great, against Mission Vets. They played a tough Mission Vets team. This week they played United South, and shocking would be the key word here. Absolutely, man. It was 7-7 in the third. Harlingen had 3 turnovers in that quarter. United South took one 92 yards, and the next thing you know, 30-13. Man, you could have knocked me over with a feather. 30-13. Repeat, United South defeats Harlingen. And boy, it doesn't get any easier for the Cardinals. We would think that, after losing the South, they've got a game coming up against Reagan. They might be in trouble, but Reagan's not quite, they may be in the same boat as the Cardinal. Yeah, because San Benito kicked the tar out of Laredo United.
That's right.
Laredo United beat San Antonio Reagan by 3, right?
Yes, they did. And of course, Reagan won the first week by 3 over, I think it was Brennan. I think it was Brennan up in San Antonio. So maybe this is a battle between great teams who are still finding themselves early in the season. Harlingen's still going forward, of course, without Leo Tienda, but what do you expect? Do you think they'll make a good effort against Reagan? I think they will.
I think so too. I mean, I think that they're going to come back because they're going to straighten out all the turnovers that they had. I don't think that the passing game can look worse than they did last week.
Well, and sometimes it depends on what the other team brings at you. But without your great running back, things are different. The other team, believe me, the other team knows that you don't have Leo Tienda. So it's going to throw some things at you that put more pressure on the passing game. This week, expect more balance from the Cardinals. We talked a lot in the early season about the Harlingen guys that were returning on defense, but there's another couple of guys that are starting to stand out. This strong safety, Ezra Rubio, is apparently a real good player. The first game they played against Vets, Anderson and Medley, these guys I didn't know anything about, led the team in tackles. So Harlingen has not yet begun to fight. That's a team with a ton of talent, a ton of tradition. Let's see how well they could do against Reagan. Like I say, I'm not willing to say that I think they're going to lose. I'm really not.
Yeah, and nothing against United South, but when you think Laredo, you think United, you think Alexander. South is, I don't want to say it is an afterthought because we've kind of trouble for that word.
It was a middle tier team. It's been in and out of the playoffs.
Maybe, just maybe, Harlingen was looking at San Antonio Reagan. The kids were like, okay, we got this game. We're just getting ready. We're going to get queued up for Reagan. And this maybe is one of those eye awakeners. This is one of those, hey, we screwed up pretty good. Let's get it right.
Well, I know the Cardinals, and I'll tell you this. They'd rather have these troubles at the beginning, like most teams, than at the end. So let's see how they can come back and play a strong game against a Reagan team that, again, hey, they're 1-1. That's a team that generally doesn't lose that much in the regular season. In fact, Harlingen right now and Reagan mirror each other. Let's see who gets it together first.
Yeah.
All right, now, Edcouch. Boy, Edcouch.
Would have been a good game to be at.
I'm telling you, man, I've been missing some of the good ones, but I've also seen some good ones. So Edinburgh Vela leads for most of the game. We kept checking the scores over at Richard R. Floridas and seemed like they had them, but man, Edcouch pulled off some big plays. They really did. They got a 91-yard kickoff return from A.J. Rodriguez. They drove down the length of the field in the final seconds, and the score was 0-0-1 left.
Yeah, incredible. I was doing the Mercedes Nicky Rowe game.
Right.
I have to be there for those games, but it was 21-7 at one point. I was like, oh man. And then all of a sudden, they creep back, Bella gets a couple points here, or gets a score, and then, but
it kept coming, man. They kept coming.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I watched that play, and people are complaining, saying that Edcouch got some help or something like that. There is no help there. I go, just stop complaining.
You mean the refs and all that stuff?
Yeah. It is what it is, as Manny Gomez would say. But, come on. It's like, it just seems like we always find an excuse. We're playing teams up north, it's racist or something like that. Let's just, call it what it is. Edcouch came back and won the game.
Man, Aguinaga, golly. I mean, last year he started out like a house of fire, went down with that injury, came back at the end. He's put up some big numbers right now. They got great receivers, man. I guess the winning touchdown went to JJ, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. After AJ ran 91 yards for a kickoff, they gave up the 2-point run back, as it were, on a bad snap or a block kick. Look, those are two of the best teams in the Valley. And here's the thing. When you play a good team like that, either one, you're not going to drop that far in the standings, man, because it was a knockdown, drag-out game that came down to the wire. Robert Guerra, 190 yards. He came back to earth a little bit, only 2 touchdowns. Gee whiz. Anyone else gets 190 and 2, you want to nominate him for the Pope. You know what I'm saying?
I took some heat for that because later in the week I said that I didn't think he was going to score more than 3, which, I mean, come on. You can't expect him to get 9 every night, and you can't expect against Edcouch's defense, who played horrible as far as, against Los Fresnos.
Yeah, they did, and the thing is, the Edcouch defense, especially on the front, had some injury problems, man. So they've had to have some kids step up and play, and apparently they did a pretty good job. I think this kid, I'm looking at Vinay Ayala, I think he's 16. Made an interception the first game, made a bunch of tackles. Look, that's like Harlingen. Tons of talent. You got 8 or 10 kids on the bench that can be stars, man. They're going to be at least be frontline starters. They're getting their chance. They'll get those other kids back. One of them not for a while.
Yeah.
One of them off and on. So a chance for them kids to step up, and that's a big win for them at home. They got to be proud of that.
Yeah, you're coming off a loss that you gave up a lot of points. You played well offensively, but defensively you didn't. And, to come back and do what you did, to come back.
Drove the field when they were behind and won the game with 1 second. Now, Vela at 1-1, that's the first non-district loss in a couple of years because they went through the table undefeated last year. Now they take on a Brownsville Vets team that's 2-0. They're looking pretty good, man.
Yeah, and they played well both weeks. They've
They made the comeback against North for week 1.
Yeah, and it's not that they have really stacked the deck as far as the teams that they're playing, but they beat Edinburgh North. And then they get the win at home.
Rivetta, right?
Yeah. Rivetta.
Well, okay, so you take opposite tack. Sometimes you play tough teams, sometimes you don't. But I'll tell you what, Gustavo Vasquez is tough, man. Mm-hmm. He had a rushing touchdown. He caught a long pass for a touchdown. That team is pretty solid, man. We're going to see what they have. They're at Vela. Now, what do the SaberCats do to get back on track?
Well, I think you got to establish a passing game to open up the run for Robert, because if they think you're going to run the ball every time, they're going to sit on that. And I think his 190 last week diminishes if you can't establish a passing game.
Well, I think Nate Garcia has proven himself as a running quarterback. He had more than 200 yards. Mm-hmm. 200 yards against Edcouch and threw for 100 and something. They're still breaking in a bunch of new receivers, okay? But they're going to be there. They just need to keep playing. Obviously not a bad effort against Edcouch. It's a very good team. It came down to the wire. You can be mad that you lost, but I don't think they did anything particularly that acted against them. They were just beaten by the team that came in to win it at the end. So you play at home against Vets, and as far as I'm concerned, they don't miss a step.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good football game.
They had 2 road games to start the season off, and they're 1-1. It's not a bad lick.
And here's the thing: they wanted to be tested with all those graduation losses and a new group. Well, they have been tested. They can assess and they can analyze and they can measure, and now they just go forward. I don't think there's any panic in the Vela camp. That's still one of the best football teams in the Valley, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, this next game that we're going to talk about,
it was great last year, and it might be greater this year.
Yeah, you're talking about 2 running teams, and it was the team that established the pass that won the game, and they were down. And that was Weslaco East and McAllen Memorial.
Wow, golly, down 13, right? Memorial had them. They shut down East for the first couple of quarters, and it was the exact opposite in the second half. East went bananas. They went from 52 total yards to 367 or some such, including a long bomb. So Memorial now against San Benito. Is there a better team right now after the first 2 weeks than San Benito?
I don't think so.
Who would it be? Would it be East?
Oh, I think East is hot.
Yeah,
I think, we finally established that they have a passing quarterback. And, they've always talked about it. They said they're going to throw it in more. They actually did. There's one play where they do a pass back on the right at the goal line.
Really?
This is something you didn't really see from a Weslaco East team, was them really taking a chance with the pass.
Yeah.
They would usually just
pound you.
Yeah,
pound you and make quick moves.
And the thing with Lefevre, you can actually do that. You can actually put them there and put them into QB keeper. Right there, QB sneak.
Oh man, I'm telling you, he's a sneak machine. You're not going to stop that kid. Yeah. If he gets one step in the right direction and one block, he's in. That's just all there is to it.
And if they're passing the ball, can you imagine if this is that Weslaco East team that puts the pass and the run together?
When you have an athlete like J.C. Vargas, like you had Ciro last year, hey man, you can throw the ball a couple of times because a kid like that's going to make you look real good.
Yeah.
So you got a good quarterback, a great potential receiver, and voila, East is a team to be reckoned with. But let's go back to this Memorial San Benito game. We've been asking who the kids are going to be. How about Eric Retta, R-E-T-T-A? Had an outstanding game. He's had 2 outstanding games. And who is Tyrone Harper? He's piling on the yards too, a good running back for San Benito. These are some of the guys that have come on to replace those big shots that graduated. So they are reloading. They're not rebuilding. They're 2-0 and they look great. They got a bunch of young kids, man. A junior, Isaiah Trevino's had some big games at receiver. Sophomore, A.J. Garcia on defense. I didn't know Skylar Garcia was back. He played last year. I think he had 40-something tackles. He's a pretty good player. They've got the other guy, Emilio Garcia, was a linebacker, 23. No, San Benito all of a sudden is looking real scary, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they had 49 against East Central. They could have had more.
Yeah, they could have. And, you watch that game, the scores that East Central had was they basically threw it up to their tall receivers.
Yeah, they're athletic plays.
They
didn't drive nothing up.
Yeah, it wasn't like anything really long, sustained, a couple of breakaways. But for the most part, San Benito's D-line is playing well.
Well, yeah, I got that big kill, Alvarez. And here's the thing. They drove a couple of times and ran out of time, didn't make it here. They could have had 60-something points, man. That offense is something, man. So what about them against Memorial now?
Now, that's going to be interesting because last year, you have to remember, we had the Trevor Spates show where he would take off and then San Benito would put their collection of players to work. And it was just back and forth, back and forth. I don't know if Memorial is going to have the weapons because remember last year they had DJ Johnson on the outside that could stretch, and they don't have that stretch this year. But they do have 3 great running backs. Yeah, they got a lot of good players. Still a good offensive line despite some injuries. They got to be a little more consistent. They can't have a delay a game penalty, get a touchdown call back like they did in overtime or they did late in the game against these. So I still feel like Memorial is a very dangerous team. In fact, I'm quite sure of it. And here's one of the things that I've noticed. Their defensive line is off to a big start. De La Torre, 61. Gutierrez, I think, 79. Those guys have rang up a lot of tackles. And see, here's the thing. In the last couple of years, when Memorial's defense didn't play up to its potential, they weren't getting a hit on people at the line of scrimmage. Defensive backs were making a lot of tackles. Linebackers having to work overtime. I feel like their defense – and see, here's the thing. They've played some teams that are offensively very strong. But when they get in the district, you'd be surprised they average about 15 points a game, 250 yards. It's a good defense. Yeah. The defensive line is coming on. JoJo Williams got himself a touchdown. Yeah. Okay, he's getting integrated into the mix. And Ramblin' Campbell Spates had another 150-yard day, so he's another day at the office for him. I mean, gosh, as a freshman, he don't seem to be too nervous. Yeah. Is he because he don't know? Hey, that's a good thing. Well, you know what? When you see your brother run for all those yards, you figure, like, okay, my turn.
I got this.
Yeah. But, it's going to be an interesting game against San Benito. I don't know if I make the Memorial the favorites this year like they were last year because this San Benito team is putting up some points. Yeah, it's dangerous, and it doesn't seem to have missed a step out from last year, a 10-win team. So, to me, that's a game of the week. I don't know what the paper is going to do, but I don't know how that would be a game of the week unless it's East and Economedes. Yeah. That's a Thursday night game, and Economedes has scored 84 points in 2 games. They haven't given up much. They didn't play a great schedule, but don't matter. Hannah's not bad. Palmview was tough last year. So against East, they take a step up in the grade of the quality of their opponent. What do you expect? Well, we're talking about 2 teams that love to run, but if East has established that path, it's going to screw up a little bit of that. Okay, we know what we to expect from East. Now they're going to have to, play. They're going to have to be humble on the inside. Let the corners have to, and the corners are going to have to cover. All I want to do is say this name because he ran a fumble back 100 yards last week. Ace Chavez. That's a great name. Kid, I'm glad you're a good player because I wanted to say your name, and you need to keep doing it because I want to say that name. Ace is the place. Ace Chavez. And you got to love that guy, man. This is incredible. All right, so Economedes, they're running the ball real well the first 2 games. Will they be able to get the multiplicity of the offense going? The throw, the quarterback keeper, the end around with that wing back, that other back. So, I mean, this is about the time when I think they're going to unfold the entire nasty slot as it were. It's a good ball game. It's important for the Jaguars to come out and play well. This is one of those games where you don't necessarily have to win. It's non-district. Didn't used to be. Yeah. But they've got to play well because East right now is a steamroller with a little bit of juke in its jive, so it could be tough, man. It could be tough. And this is one of those East teams that they got some flash, because Lefevre. Big plays, man. 94 yards to JC. East runs 100. That's not just ground and pound and 5 yards at a time. They're breaking off some big chunks. Yeah, and so for Economedes, they got to make it into let's grind this down. And that's what they do. That's what they do. You look up and they have the ball for 8 minutes, and you don't know where the ball is coming from. And I'll tell you. And here's why Gabe Pena loves to play Thursday games, the coach at Economedes, because you don't have that much time to prepare. You run against a spread 9 games, and all of a sudden you come up with these cats run from the 1940s with wingbacks and such, man. You get 2 days to prepare, and you got to play. Yeah. He loves it because, man, the fewer days that people have to get ready for that,
They won't know that the trap hits them until it's a 62-yard touchdown. The dude is in the end zone. They're talking about, getting on the phone like, where did he come from type of stuff. You hear that when teams play against the teams that run those offenses. You always hear the opposing coaches, God, where was he? Where did he come from? Because they just can't find you until you're gone, man.
Yeah, so that's going to be the hard part for East is, if you think about it, East has seen Weslaco play. They play them every year. They're going to know what to expect. And Economedes, it's almost like it's still back in district because, they were together for the last 4 years.
That's right. Here's two names to remember, Gerald and Fernando Garza. I don't know if they're related or not. They're related as defensive linemen on that East team. They've also are off to a good start. So those guys are going to have to not stand straight up, but they got to stay at home. In other words, against that offense, man, you just got to play your game, read your keys, and not get overly crazy because they'll go right by you.
Yeah.
But those kids have played well. We know they have the linebackers. We know they got the secondary men. I'm telling you, man, I had a feeling about East at the beginning of the season. Everybody said, well, they have a tough schedule, this and that. Well, they're 2-0 so far. A win against the Jags makes them 3-0, and I don't know why they wouldn't be in our top 5. We haven't done our poll yet, but I know they're going to be there.
Yeah.
All right, now let's move on to Mercedes and Weslaco. We'll stay with the Mid-Valley. Mercedes, they are, but you know what? That Mark Ledesma stepped in and threw for more than 200 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He's the real McCoy, man. He's going to step in there and have his chance to play.
It took a little bit of time. I was doing that game, and it just took a little bit of time for him to get going because, you're just trying to find your niche, and you're playing, a road team that I don't think anybody was expecting to be this good, with a brand new.
They're balanced and they're tougher. We were right in predicting they would be more balanced and they would be tougher with Coach Flores.
And they still pass the ball well, but they've established a run game. And I think against Mercedes, and Mercedes just took a little bit of time for them to get their passing game going, and then all of a sudden it just started to click. Just not enough time, and the defense kind of gave up a couple of plays that we didn't think were going to happen.
Well, you know what? The more pressure you put on the defense, I don't care how good they are, they're going to break. They got a lot of young kids. Mercedes, San Benito, Lyford. There's some teams with some young cats that are playing a lot of football, and that's good because they're solid athletes and they're getting their chance, but they're prone to making silly mistakes that freshmen and sophomores make. All right, now, so Mercedes, Weslaco scored a nice win, man. I don't care. You can say Marshall not that good. They haven't been good since the 70s. Don't matter. It's a San Antonio team. They think they own us. Well, they don't own Weslaco. Yeah. What do you think of that? 48 points worth.
After playing the defending state champions the week before, you go and travel to San Antonio, which is not an easy jaunt.
No.
For you to go up there and then actually put it to them.
You're not going to Fiesta, Texas. You're going to play, and we put it on them, man. I was happy about that. They got a bunch of guys. You know about Diego Rodriguez, okay? Guy's great. You know about the linebacker, number 8. What's his name? Nichols. Yeah. How can we forget Nichols? But here's some guys you don't know about. Brian Leal, Andrew Olguin, and Brandon Mendoza. They've got a bunch of guys who are getting their chance, and those are very solid defensive players. Weslaco is strong. Lada and Olzak, those are the running backs. They had 188 yards between them. They have that committee where you got about 5 or 6 or 8 guys. Those are the latest 2.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about Weslaco backs. They get 80 or 90 yards, but like on 5 or 6 carries. They perennially lead the league in yards per carry. Why? Because they're that good? Possibly.
But their offense is the slot T is something that you don't prepare for because you don't see it very often anymore.
See Economedes, see Weslaco. Those are the type of teams where you don't know where they're coming from. And if they got speedy backs and they got that lineman that can push you out or get a seal, bing, 25 yards.
If you ever remember the Bruce Bush teams at PSA North, you never knew where the ball was going. It was either going to, you expected it on the outside, it was coming right up the gut.
Well,
and that's the thing.
Coach Tony, Gabe Pena, fill in the blank, all those cats came up at some time with Bush. Mm-hmm. They'll point to him as the progenitor, the mentor, the creator of these things. Of course, Bruce will tell you that he got it from so-and-so back in 1912, and of course the guy from 1912 probably got it from Moses when he was in junior high. So, but the fact of the matter is, in the game of spread and the game of these things the way they're played now, that throwback style is hard to deal with, especially like you said in 1 week. All right, so Mercedes and Weslaco playing at Weslaco. We're not predicting the games. Boy, Mercedes could be 0-3.
Yeah, it's a tough game for them, and they've got a great offensive weapons, but they just really haven't put it together just yet. I think that with Gomez not playing last week and Ledesma in for him. You lose a step because you have to get that. You have to find your footing.
Yeah, and footing is the key because they've only rushed for 70 yards in 2 games. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Now, Mercedes has been a passing team the last several years, but you got to get 80, 90 yards. Yeah. When you got to be able to get yards on the ground when you need it. 70 yards in 2 games, even though one game was against Carolina, which, by the way, got beat. You seen that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Carolina lost. So they've got to run the ball better. And they've got the offensive line to do it, and they've got the backs to do it. I think Ledesma, the other Ledesma, has like 50-something in 2 games. Hey, he's going to break out. Is it against Weslaco? We shall see. Those Fresnos and McAllen, the Falcons take the earliest bye in the history of football. Yeah. Good Lord, I was on the second week. Just when you get ready and you start killing people, you have a great win against Edcouch and you got to sit. Yeah. What does that do to a team?
Well, I think if you lost, you'd be okay because you could sit there and lick your wounds and get it all right. But now that you had a great win against Edcouch,
you're anxious. Yeah. What are we doing here?
And now you're going against a McAllen team that lost the first week but got their footing right against PSG Memorial. Now you've got to go against a team that kind of it has found its way a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't take long for a McAllen team to get some confidence because they expect to be good. I think they've had some good performances so far. As Martinez has stepped in, he's starting to find the mark. Of course, Pablo Alvarado's been a great secondary player for years. They've got players, man. They got defensive kids back, and they got back to where they think they want to be with that win last week. And so I think they give those Fresnos a ball game. They're playing at home, right?
Yeah.
I expect them to give them a ball game. All right, so to recap what we've been doing so far, we've got some teams on a roll. You got East at 2-0. You got San Benito at 2-0. You got Economedes at 2-0. You got some teams that are playing well. You got some teams that we predicted to be among the Valley's best, including Vela and Harlingen, that find themselves at 1-1. Obviously the tea leaves haven't even been ordered yet. They're not even in the mail. But we look at the points on the curve and we say, wow, let's see how these big shot teams from the past and from the recent past will respond to getting a loss. I think it's good for them both. Not good as in they would rather have lost than won. That's silly. But good as in, okay, now what are we going to be made of? Let's get back to business and show everybody how good we are.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this week you're going to see a lot of the teams that are 1-1, take that big step forward, and you're going to see some teams sit there and scratch their head before district.
Well, and in fact, that's right. District is on the horizon. I think 30's got one more non-district game, but those teams with 8 or 9, they're going to get started right off the bat here. Okay, so let's end segment 1 with a hearty hail and well met, and say we'll be back in a minute to talk about the rest of the picture in Valley High School football. Selber and Barry on the show.